Order. Are there any select committee reports? Any select committee reports? Shine Wu.
I now present the report of the Economic Development and Science and Innovation Committee on its inquiry into how we can maintain economic growth while reducing the wealth gap. So essentially, a couple of points of context before we get into our recommendations. What we have seen is that New Zealand has experienced steady economic growth since 2012, and the wealth gap has increased rapidly from 1980. It did stabilise in the 1990s, though, and it has remained constant since then. We consider that there is a role for the government in reducing inequality and material hardship. So with that being said, we had 4 main points of recommendation. The first one is surrounding housing. What we thought is that rising house prices have the biggest effect on low-income earners for 3 reasons. The first one was that high house prices incentivise overcrowding, which can cause health problems. The second one is that high house prices mean that there is less money left over for other necessities such as heating and food. And the third one is that housing is a source of wealth. So with that being said, our recommendations are threefold. Firstly, we recommend systematically reviewing the existing stock of regulations to identify any unnecessary barriers to increasing housing supply and amend these regulations where appropriate. The second one is that we recommend investigating the desirability and feasibility of accelerating the government's investment in building more social housing. The third one is we would recommend implementing policies which encourage people to move into the regions where there is not a housing crisis, which is to say regions outside of places like Auckland and Wellington. The second area which we have recommendations around is regulatory systems. The chief economist at the New Zealand Institute, Dr. Eric Crampton, came to present to us yesterday, and he believes that ownership rules and regulations that prevent overseas investors and local entrepreneurs from opening businesses in New Zealand prevent competition, resulting in higher prices. This is regressive and hurts poorer people more. And as such, we are concerned that some of New Zealand's regulatory systems are no longer fit for purpose. We would recommend that the relevant government entity review major regulatory frameworks such as the Occupational Licensing Regime and the Overseas Investment Act to ensure that they remain relevant and do not unnecessarily prevent economic growth or reduce consumer choice. The third recommendation we have is around the living wage. We consider it important to transition towards New Zealand becoming a living wage nation, and we think that the government should change its procurement policies to require government entities to only engage in companies that pay a living wage, and secondly, that it inquire into the feasibility and desirability of requiring large businesses to pay a living wage. The fourth area we had around recommendations was around taxation. We want to introduce compulsory financial literacy education in high schools and to make our tax brackets more progressive. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Ta Ramsay Vili.
I now present the report of the Education and Workforce Committee on its